Am I the jerk for refusing to help my ex's mom after she evicted me when we broke up? 3 years ago, I was in what I thought was a solid relationship with my boyfriend Ryan. We had been together for almost 4 years since our sophomore year of college, and I genuinely believed we were building a future together. After graduation, when we both found jobs in the same city, moving in together seemed like the natural next step. The problem was that rent in our area is ridiculously expensive, and we were both starting entry-level positions with student loans to pay off. Ryan's mother, Marion, suggested a solution that seemed perfect at the time. She owned a small rental property, a garden apartment in the basement of the house where she lived. Her previous tenants had just moved out, and she offered to let us live there at a reduced rent. Looking back, I should have been more cautious about this arrangement, but I was excited about saving money and had always gotten along well with Marion. She had always been warm toward me, inviting me to family gatherings and treating me like I was already part of the family. Ryan was her only child, and she often told me how happy she was that he had found someone like me. We moved into the garden apartment, and things were good at first. We signed a rental agreement that seemed standard, though I now realize it heavily favored Marion as the landlord. Ryan and I split the rent, furnished the place together, and settled into our life as a couple. About a year into this living arrangement, Ryan and I hit a rough patch. He had been growing distant, working late hours, and becoming increasingly critical of me. After several difficult conversations and a failed attempt at couples counseling, we decided to break up. It was painful but seemed mutual, and we initially agreed to be civil about it. I assumed we would figure out the living situation together. Maybe one of us would move out, or perhaps we could stick it out as roommates until the lease was up in 3 months. What I didn't expect was Marion's reaction. The day after our breakup, Marion knocked on our door. When I answered, her entire demeanor had changed. The warm, motherly woman I had known for years was suddenly cold and businesslike. She informed me that since Ryan and I were no longer together, I was not family anymore and needed to vacate the apartment. When I pointed out that I was on the lease and had paid rent, she pulled out the rental agreement and pointed to a clause that gave her the right to terminate with 24 hours' notice under certain conditions. I was shocked and argued that this couldn't be legal, regardless of what the lease said. She responded that I could get lawyers involved if I wanted, but in the meantime I needed to be out by the following evening. Ryan stood by silently during this exchange, refusing to meet my eyes. Those 24 hours were a nightmare. I had nowhere to go on such short notice and ended up sleeping on a friend's couch while keeping most of my belongings in my car. Over the next few weeks, I scrambled to find a new apartment, which required me to borrow money from my parents for the security deposit and first month's rent. The available apartments in my price range were all far from my workplace, adding a long commute to my already stressful situation. To make matters worse, when I finally arranged to pick up the rest of my things from the garden apartment, I discovered that several valuable items were missing, including jewelry from my grandmother and an expensive laptop. Marion claimed she had no idea what happened to them, suggesting that perhaps I had misplaced them in my hasty departure. Ryan, who by this point was barely communicating with me, simply texted that he hadn't seen my things and couldn't help. I considered taking legal action, but was told by a lawyer friend that while I might eventually win a case, it would be expensive and time-consuming, with no guarantee of recovering my belongings. Emotionally drained and financially stretched thin, I decided to cut my losses and focus on rebuilding my life. The next 2 years were challenging. I worked hard to establish myself in my career, made new friends, and eventually moved to a better apartment. I had no contact with Ryan or Marion during this time, having blocked both their numbers after the final disappointing exchange about my missing belongings. Last month, I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, I was surprised to hear Marion's voice. Her tone was dramatically different from our last interaction, tearful and pleading. She explained that she had been diagnosed with a serious medical condition requiring expensive treatment. While she had insurance, the out-of-pocket costs were substantial. Ryan was helping as much as he could, but he had recently lost his job and was struggling himself. Then came the real reason for her call. She wanted to know if I would be willing to contribute to her medical expenses. She reminded me of the good times we had shared as a family and how she had always treated me like a daughter. When I didn't immediately respond, she mentioned that she still had some of my things in storage that she'd be happy to return. I was stunned by her audacity. This woman had thrown me out with virtually no notice, likely stolen or allowed the theft of my valuables, and contributed significantly to one of the most stressful periods of my life. Now she was calling me for money and using my own belongings as leverage? I told her as calmly as I could that I would not be contributing to her medical expenses. I reminded her of how she had treated me when Ryan and I broke up, how she had said I was not family anymore, and how I had never recovered my missing possessions. I said that while I was sorry about her health issues, I didn't owe her anything, least of all financial support. She began crying harder, saying that people make mistakes when they're emotional, and that she had always cared for me. She insisted that she truly didn't know what happened to my missing things but would look harder if I would reconsider helping her. I stood firm in my refusal and ended the call. I thought that would be the end of it, but the next day I began receiving messages from Ryan's extended family members, some of whom I hadn't spoken to in years. Apparently, Marian had shared a very different version of our conversation, painting me as heartless for refusing to help a sick woman who had once given me a place to live at a reduced rent. According to her, I was bitter about the breakup and taking it out on her when she was at her most vulnerable. Some mutual friends have also reached out, questioning my decision. They argue that regardless of past conflicts, refusing to help someone with medical bills is cold-hearted. A few have suggested that I should at least contribute a small amount as a gesture of basic human compassion. I've started questioning my decision. While I still believe Marian's treatment of me was wrong, I wonder if I'm allowing past hurt to make me callous towards someone in genuine need. At the same time, I resent being manipulated and having my reputation attacked when I refuse to be guilted into financial support. My current boyfriend thinks I made the right call, pointing out that Marian only reached out when she wanted something from me, not to apologize or make amends for her previous behavior. My parents agree, having witnessed how difficult that period was for me, but the continued messages from others have made me doubt myself. So am I the jerk for refusing to help my ex's mom with her medical bills after how she treated me when we broke up?